Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Vineetha, and I'm here to talk to you about building cross-functional teams in an enterprise SaaS startup. I hope you're able to see my slides fine.
Yes, we are able to see it.
Okay. So, just in case the introduction wasn't enough and some of you are wondering why am I here, right? Just thought let me give you a brief into what my experience has been and what am I doing with Esper, etc. So I currently head the product and the program team here at Esper. Started my career with Microsoft. I spent a decade at Dell running some of their multi-year enterprise programs. So at Dell, it's a mix of B2B and B2C businesses, which came with its own set of challenges. I got to move around some different technical functions. And I decided to take a plunge last year, just get more exposure, do a continuous learning with a different kind of startup, right? And here so here at Esper, I'm also responsible for the engineering delivery, apart from managing the product and the program teams, and that's why I'm here, right? So why is enterprise SaaS different, right? So we all know what's the difference between a SaaS, a software as a service, and an enterprise software. But I'm here to, touch upon a little of why is enterprise SaaS different in this context, right? A few key things that I thought would help. The one big thing is customer is not equal to user, right? So we have a huge number of enterprise customers with a varying spectrum of use personas, right? So this could be anywhere from a CEO of an organization all the way to a IT admin with different levels of technical expertise of how they view the product as such, right? So it's as important to know your customer as it is to know your users, right? So the distinction is critical, and that's something we've got to take care of as we work through an entire customer lifecycle. Secondly, varying turnaround times for customer onboarding, right? So some of these customers, as would be the case with any enterprise SaaS, might be holding a big chunk of your revenue, right? And some of them would need all of your features, some might need none, some might need some of it. And so the different time for an onboarding experience, ensuring how the product fits. In this case, how does Esper fit for different customers, right? How do you make that work for their customer need? It just differs. So that's another critical aspect that goes into defining an execution model, right, for an enterprise SaaS. Next, different domains that require in-depth understanding. So we could have customers all the way from healthcare to logistics to IT operations to you name it, right? So, and given that it's an enterprise SaaS, your product is very tightly integrated with how it is for their customers. So it's also important to know what domain are we talking about, right? How does Esper fit into a customer in a logistics field versus a healthcare field? How do we make sure that the nitty-gritties are incorporated as we deal with an entire customer workflow? That's an aspect that we've got to look at. Last is need for dedicated support and relationship management, right? Stakeholder management is extremely critical. So for example, SLAs, right? Esper SLAs might be tightly integrated with our own customers' SLAs and what they are delivering to their end users, which is super important because you got to handhold them through the process and ensure that there is constant support available for these customers, right, as you deal with them, because that's what goes into retention and a high lifetime value for us. So that's one thing we totally kept in mind as we went through this whole process. Now, how does Esper do it, right? What's our execution model? So for any organization, you've got standard pillars in place, right? You have sales team, you have marketing team, you have an operations team, product engineering team. None of this differs. It's about how you work together. What role do you play in this entire process? That's what I wanted to touch upon, especially in this conversation, right? So for me, a workflow is all the way from starting from a raw lead to retaining a customer, right? Their entire life with Esper. So where do we fit in? Where does each part of this Esper team fits in that? Start with marketing and sales, right? Traditional process, how does marketing team work on identifying your raw leads? How do you turn that into your qualified leads? How do you work with sales team to ensure you've got the right channels, right? You're looking at the right channels for customers. You know your target customers, right? You identify the right opportunity. So they go back and forth and work closely in making sure that these are converted well. At the same time, also focusing on some of the remarketing campaigns that we have, right? So we know that, hey, what did work for us the first time? How do we take care of these customers? How do you refine this industry-based pitch for sales team to get, to convert some of their opportunities into customers? So Esper does a starter plan as well. You can onboard up to 100 devices. So it's all the way from a lead to an opportunity to a starter plan customer to a paid customer, right? We have a lot of them converting into a higher paid customers and retaining with us. The next thing, once you know you have an opportunity, you have a prospect customer, that's where the education part of it comes in, right? And that's, we have a dedicated role for technical pre-sales and the customer success team. They come in and play that role for us. For example, it could be about educating what Esper is about. It could be evangelizing what we are doing, right? How do we do that product fitment? Hey, how does Esper work for you? How do we onboard your first set of devices? What are you actually looking for, and what do we have at Esper, and how do we tweak that solution for you, right? This is a very close collaboration between the sales and the technical pre-sales team and the customer success team, doing that bit of education and working very well with the teams, right? With the prospect customers, excuse me. Also, it is also about evaluating what are the requirements that the customer has, right? What's actually, what are we actually looking for versus what do we have at Esper? What do we need to support them, right? What do we need immediately versus what can wait for a long term, right? How do you make those commitments? That plays an important role too. Now that takes us to the next phase of it, right? How is customer success and the product team work on this? So now you know that, hey, here are the requirements that you need for Esper, right? These are what works for this customer. This is what probably they're looking for. Now we've got to play our role of customer champion, right? You got to influence the product roadmap to make this work. So that's why the product team comes in and works with the customer success team. And for me, I don't think saying yes every time or saying no every time, that's going to make a big difference, right? It's about how do you make the right prioritization calls to keep everybody happy, all the way from your customer to your sales to your marketing to your product and engineering team. You've got to have a roadmap. Yes, agree. How do you keep that flexible to make this kind of dynamic prioritization decisions, right? So at Esper, we sort of dedicate some time of a sprint to deal with such customer specific tasks, right? We make sure that we're delivering those, except influencing some of the long-term roadmap features. That's a different situation, but we make sure that we are dealing with these kind of tasks in a very frequent basis, right? So the kind of call helps us influence the teams better as well from a product perspective, and at the same time not causing a lot of churn for the engineering team. Next is the product and the engineering team. This is a phase that everyone must be extremely familiar with. How does this work, right? This is how we get the this is how the product and the engineering team works in executing your roadmap, right? How do you make sure you've got high quality releases? One thing is ensuring a complete uptime for our customers while delivering new features, maintaining the same the existing features works very well for our customers, right? So this got a whole plethora of stuff going ahead in our releases, ensuring evaluating our success metrics, making sure this happens throughout. Now, one thing to note here is this is a completely transparent process, right? We keep everybody at Esper honest about how are the releases going on, what's coming in, and what's not coming in, when is it coming in, what's going on, etc. And so that's the last phase that actually closes the feedback loop for us. And this is something I absolutely love for it as well, right? How does the product team work with a sales and marketing team to close this loop for a customer workflow, right? This is a very, collaborative discussion and an extremely two-way communication, right? So on one hand, the product team is providing information upfront on, upcoming features, where is the delivery plan, what's happening, how things are supposed to work. Are we changing anything around? What do you need to be apprised of as you talk to customers so that they are aware and they plan their quarter and the year accordingly. On the other hand, the product team gets direct information on customer feedback, right? It's not very easy to get that kind of information because you're an enterprise SaaS. You've got to talk to a whole lot of users to even get some information on a particular customer, right? So these are the customer facing folks that give us information on, what could be better for us. How do we evaluate our own user experience, right? How do we take that information back, make it work better for our customers? So it's an extremely beneficial conversation for everybody involved, and this is something we do frequently, right? This also helps me and my team keep the balance between roadmap and innovation and technical debt items, right? As we grow, as we scale, it's also important for the engineering team to ensure that we are able to scale. The product can scale, right? So technical that items might not make a difference to the product, but it's important, it's as important. So keep those transparent, keep that information available so everybody knows what's coming in, right? Now, enablers. So this is how we do it, we execute it here at Esper, right? What enables this, right? What are those things that helps us drive this well-oiled system as we scale? So these are the few, right? First thing, hiring people culture, something I'm extremely passionate about. And I'm proud to say that Esper has a very strong focus on team culture and the kind of people we hire at Esper, right? So the first thing is your ability to think above and beyond. Right? It's one part of it is, you've got a static roles and responsibilities. Here's what you're going to come and do. But you should also be able to dynamically evolve your role and your career as we grow and figure out what is our level of influence in this whole workflow, right? And one aspect of that is cross-team interviews, right? So for example, when I interviewed here at Esper, one of our rounds was with my marketing peer. That gave me a lot of exposure into, understanding how things work at Esper. How does the team perceive, working here at Esper apart from your, regular product and engineering team. So that kind of information, the kind of decision-making sort of helps us get the right people and right team here at Esper. Next thing, shared goals, right? Every company has a vision. It's something that we all start with, right? As you start off an organization. The key here is how do you translate that vision into something, into a common goal that every team can work towards, right? So for here at Esper, our goal this year was to onboard X number of devices by end of the year. That meant an X number of leads for marketing team, or Y number of opportunities for sales team, right? It meant some kind of uptime for the engineering team, high retention and increased lifetime for the product team. So each of us had a very relatable goal that we could work towards. That helped the team know where they stood in this whole process. What is the impact they were making with the kind of work they were doing and the end goal that Esper has, right? So it also helps us keep the teams with very clearly defined roles. Team dynamics. So I went through the complete process. You could see that every single process, every single part of that workflow involves more than two teams, right? Two or more teams. So that helps build a kind of trust and transparency between the teams, right? There's nothing that's hidden, right? There is no secrets coming out of an engineering release. Everybody knows what's coming. When is it coming? Is something not happening? If are there issues? Is there something that we know about? So nobody is taken by surprise as they talk to a customer. Even bigger, the customer is not surprised at the end of the day, right? So that kind of team dynamics sort of helps. The last is measuring impact, right? We define success metrics and use that to identify our leverage points. So for example, a particular success metric for a sales team might be due to lack of a feature or something that's not working with the engineering team. That gives us a leverage point to work against, right? So that sort of helps us evaluate, okay, what are we not doing well? What is affecting a different team's metric that we are not doing right? So that the kind of relatable metrics and the kind of dependency helps us work towards the same goal, towards the same process, and the circle just keeps going on. Outcome and efficiency. So what happened when we execute this model, right? Where are we right now? First thing is increased sphere of influence for the teams, right? So this kind of helps the teams to grow outside their comfort zones. They are aware of how well they can influence the counterpart team in this whole process, right? So that helps them grow as well, that helps them move around, and that helps set that kind of it's actually related to a no silos approach to it. If they know that their working makes this kind of difference for a different team, right? So that's what a no silos approach is also about. breaking down walls between these teams. That's what it helped. This year, we've all known it's unprecedented times. We've been working as a remote team all through the year. It's even more um, easy to just get into a very siloed approach, right? Each team working on their own, just doing what they're supposed to do. No, that doesn't help us achieve a bigger goal, right? So that this was important as we established the processes, built the kind of workflow, and made sure that there is absolutely a no silos approach. The next is high flexibility for teams. This this clear workflow helps our teams as well remain flexible throughout, right? So, for instance, I've had one of my program managers step up to take up managing technical pre-sales because she understood what happened there, what was the need there, what is it that we need to establish out there, right? Uh, Apart from the fact that she was managing in a program, she's program managing engineering teams, right? So this close interactions, this connection between the product and the engineering and every other team helps us move around in a very dynamic manner. Okay, I'm doing the time. Next is reduce churn and increase lifetime value. Right, so all these resulted in an extremely reduced churn for us here at Esper. While I cannot provide accurate metrics, we have lower than industry standards churn through this year, and we have ensured that you've got a higher lifetime value for our customers. And this is something we're kind of striving to get better at every day. Seamless growth, right? So many a times we've seen that the startups they grow at an incredible pace, and at the end of it, we probably don't know why we're there, right? How did we grow or why did we grow? It's probably a disproportionate growth that happened. That's not something we wanted to be at. Esper has grown at an amazing pace this year. We have more than doubled as a team. We have more than 200% increase in our customers. But we ensured that this was an extremely proportionate and in control growth, right? The foundation had to be set right to make sure that we were scaling on the same Esper values and principles. Sustaining that growth becomes important there. What next? So sustaining efficiencies as the teams grow, right? So growing, yes, great. We have been able to hold on to it. We have been able to sustain these processes. So one thing that I'd like to call out is as we grow, as a startup grows, right? Any startup grows, it's important that you build the right processes, right? Processes become important. It's not in the air. The bigger thing about that is evaluating how your processes is, right? It's a constant change. Nothing is written in stone out here. So sustaining efficiencies might require us to constantly look at the processes that we have built. Is that working for us now? What are the tweaks that we need to make this work for us in long term? That's an evaluation got to do. Building a best practices knowledge base. Again, super important for remote teams, right? How do we build easy to use documentation that we can use as we scale, right? Something that teams can look at. How did this work? What worked well? What are the experiments that we did and worked and did not work, so that the person coming behind doesn't make the same mistake. Continuous evaluation and alignment of priorities, right? So we meet very often to take a look at what are our metrics. What, not just did we meet this metric or not, right? What worked for us? What led to this, right? What is it? What was not working? Something that worked for us 4 months ago might not work for us today, right? So constant evaluation of our priorities, changing our day-to-day tasks to fit that so that your goals remain the same. Something works for you. It's important, right? So that's what's next for us. And the biggest thing is optimizing our recruitment processes to hire at scale, right? So as we grow, it's also important that we hire constantly. You don't compromise on quality, but also at the same time, you got to streamline the recruitment processes to make sure we maintain the bar, right? And we get the right kind of people and we get them quickly. So optimizing those processes are the next things that we're looking at. All right. So
yeah,
I'm gonna stop sharing, and that's what I wanted to talk about.
That's great. Well, then, thank you so much, Vineetha, first of all, for the session. And first, as you told that you hire cross functional teams. So we here have Shri, who has a question. What's the main and important criteria for hiring a SaaS salesperson? What's the major criteria that you would take?
So I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? our ability to identify the right target customers, right? That's important for an enterprise SaaS salesperson. Somebody who can also go back and know the product, right? How is this product fitting into our customers' need? That's key. That much of the knowledge and the connection that you build between your product and the customers, that's critical, right? And the next big thing I would think is empathy, right? How are you able to relate to the customer's needs? Because we are talking about an enterprise customer who's got a whole bunch of needs for them to be able to deliver to their end users, right? So unless you understand that and take back that kind of information to, back to a product team, it's not going to be a sustainable growth, right? You might be able to get opportunities, but converting that will not happen. So that's
Okay, great. So is there something like, when you take in sales for the enterprise sales, do you have any specific skills that you're looking other than communication? Like you need to know, you need to be good at presentation or certain skills that, the person might or must have beforehand? What are the like major skills that you're having in mind?
Yeah, I'm not even, touching about the standard skills that the salesperson would need, right? Like communication, your ability to deliver, your ability to make a sales pitch. I'm more concerned about what keeps them unique about, selling an enterprise SaaS product, right? That's where all this, your knowledge about the product, your ability to connect that with your customer, your empathy, all those details come in. And of course, our sales people are really extremely hands-on with our product, right? They're able to do the demos. And uh, I'll tell you the slight difference there, right? It's not just about telling you, hey, these are the features A, B, C that works for them. It's about saying, if they say, this is how this feature works, we would have expected it differently. Have that conversation with them, right? Oh, you know what? Here's what we can do. This is the other way it works, right? This is how it works differently, and that might work better for you.
True.
That's the additional knowledge that they need to have.
More like a conversation than you have it like a sales
Yeah.
call or anything like that. True.
Yeah.
So another question, do you think cold calling still works for SaaS sales kind of role? So do you think cold calling would make a great impact? What do you think? What's your opinion on it?
I wouldn't think so, but then yeah, I'm not extremely qualified to take that question either
I understand.
in an enterprise SaaS thing. But that's something I can probably get back to her on.
Okay.
Free, right? Yeah.
So we have another question is how do you from Arun, how do you manage situations when the product team identifies a bit late that what was sold to the customer is not what the product delivers? So what is pitched and what the product has is quite, there's a lot of bridge gap between it. So
Yeah.
what would you, what is something that you would do on such a situations? How do you manage everything together?
Yeah. So, see, the first thing is to proactively, expect such a situation and handle it, right? We make sure that, like I said, so the customer success team and the product team works together in making sure, the customer requirements are being handled in the product, right? And when we deliver before it goes out to a customer also, we make sure they come back in and verify it, right? Because they are the ones who came in with the initial set of requirements. So there are no surprises there. But there are obviously cases, when, hey, I'm building a bridge from one side, they probably, the customer would have thought something else and you're going in two different directions, right? So it's about handling it, right? How do we make our current scenario or how the current feature set work for this customer? Start making changes, right? And it's okay to keep them honest, right? Say that, hey, here's what we have done. This is what we need. There is a delta there, and here's where we get good. Right? Keep them honest in those conversations and make sure that you're prioritizing it. You're doing it the right way. It's not about who found the gap or who was responsible for the gap, right? At the end of the day, it's about what works well for the customer.
True, true. And just like one, it's more like a generic question. So, especially when you're looking at enterprise solutions, it's more like face to face when you go up, meet the customer, showcase everything. But having the work from home happening, how did everything change? How did you manage everything? It would have been quite difficult. So, how did you manage the new changes that came in?
I think one common learning that all of us have figured out this year, I'm sure that I've heard that from a lot of people now, right? That these online conversations, a Zoom or a Google Meet works absolutely fine in interacting with the customer just as you would do a face-to-face, right? So we haven't actually had any kind of trouble, dealing with, facing the customer conversation. Obviously, there were apprehensions in the beginning of the year. How are we going to do it? how do you meet, something that you would have built a personal connect for? How do you make this happen? Right? It just never did. I think humans are innately capable of, adapting to these
Adapting.
situations, right? So now maybe we won't be able to do as many face-to-face
Maybe
conversations,
that's
right? Yeah,
what we call like survival of the fittest, and we were
yeah.
able to sustain.
We should be grateful to the technology that,
True.
that gives us the same same experience with be it customers, even for our teams, right? We've been hiring folks who haven't seen in person at all. So, but it just made sure that there is an absolute connect between everyone, and nobody feels estranged or isolated everywhere.
True. All right. Just maybe a last question again from Arun. When a customer requests a feature needs to be disabled, how do you manage it? Like, how does your engineers, QA, and design team come together and manage it over for the enterprise sales? Do
Yeah, so that different ways to go about that, right? We avoid trying to tweak, customize it just for like I think that would be the case with any enterprises. We cannot have duplicate versions for every customer with a different variation, right? It's one product that fits everyone. Another approach to that is, building different roles that helps certain users see certain features. Some of them do not have access to those features, right? That's one way of looking at it. But yeah, in rare cases, yes, you take up requests for how do you avoid showing certain features, and that's something we come together, make a decision. We say, hey, this is what will work for everybody, right? But a thumb rule is, yeah, we we cannot disable something, for a particular customer, because that's something that probably be used by our features, our other customers, right? So that our some of our analytics metrics help us in evaluating which customers use which features, what is the most popular one, what's not being used. So that goes into driving those decisions.
Then thank you so much, Vineetha, for your time, and you actually took up time for even answering all of our questions. Thank you so much. It is very informative sessions for me and even attendees. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for having me here, Vashni.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great afternoon, and have a great day, everyone.